It's Monday night at 9. Time for Sex Talk with Dr. Richard Siegel, a certified sex therapist and sexuality educator. Dr. Siegel is here to answer all your questions about sex and sexuality that you might not have known who to ask. He'll also welcome special guests to talk about a wide variety of topics within the fascinating world of sexuality. So, welcome to Sex Talk.
Good evening. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. It's Monday night, time for Sex Talk. I'm Ricky Siegel, a certified sex therapist, and as always, with me, my partner in crime, my co-host, my brother, sexologist extraordinaire, Larry Siegel.
Hello.
And we are real excited tonight. We have a very special guest. I just can't wait to jump right into our conversation. As you know, if you've been watching the show since we started, we're still relatively new at this. And we met this wonderful lady sitting in the studio with us. She's usually in this chair. And she hosts the show immediately following ours. And we just met like, friends that hadn't met yet. Just that instant bond, just a hug and a kiss in and out on the way in and out of the studio. And we finally had a chance. We just talked for 5 minutes, and we both said, we got to get this lady on our show.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to introduce Anne Charlouse, also known as Shiro Rising.
Yay! Shiro Rising!
Yeah. We've watched your show. We've just been in awe since we met you. You're a powerhouse. And
thank you.
I think we all got the spark at the same time when we realized, wait a minute, your show is about women's entrepreneurship and women's empowerment, and we're talking about sexuality and sexual health. Wow, we have to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Such an important topic. And I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on this important show, you guys. Listen, I know for some of us, we hear sex and we think, hide the kids. Listen, we are all here, most of us at least, because technology has advanced.
This is true.
But most of us are here because someone was doing the bump and grind. So it is okay to talk about it. And listen, one of the things that I love about you guys' show is that you guys don't make it crass. You really are educating people, because sex is not just something for us to get our rocks off. We're human beings. This is about intimacy. This is about love. This is about feeling worthy. This is about finding your soulmate, your life companion. And listen, it's so important for joy, because I'm a firm believer. If more world leaders were having sex, maybe we would have less war.
Oh, you got that right.
Because if you're having great sex, who has time for war?
And who wants to complain and whine? And
that's right. You don't have the energy to if you're doing it right.
Absolutely. So for me, this topic is really, really important. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I just want to welcome myself officially.
Please do.
I am Anne Charlius. My clients call me Shiro Rising. That is the name of my company, but they also call me the mogul maker, the wealth creator, and the queen of cash flow. I am passionate about entrepreneurs, not just because this is what I do, but really I'm a third generation entrepreneur. So I have seen up close and personal the power of entrepreneurship, and I really want to help entrepreneurs next level. I did a lot of years in corporate America making billionaires richer. I'm at a point in my life that I want to take it to the people. I want to take this $1 billion training that they gave me, great training, and bring it to you, the entrepreneur, the startup, the small business owner. And you may be thinking to yourself, what does that have to do with sex? But listen, the majority of my clients are female entrepreneurs. And even though we're talking about business, believe it or not, a lot of them have dating issues. They have love issues. They have sex issues. So this is a topic that I don't feel comfortable talking to them about, because I don't have the degrees. I don't have the education or experience. But what I realized that it's a true problem. And so I wanted to come on your show so that we can discuss it.
So glad.
Yeah,
it seems to be a new problem, too. I see this a lot. We see it in our practice. I see couples in Boca Raton, and I see it in Manhattan, in New York City. The classic power couple, they're doing everything right. Everybody respects them, the high-powered jobs, the kids, they're sharing all the duties, and none of them are having sex anymore.
Yeah. And I think there's also parallel, too, when you look at a lot of sort of very high-powered male executives, male entrepreneurs, especially that are in the dating world. They're not married. there's no shortage of their regaling you with the stories of their sexual conquests. But when, my experience at least, when we look at a lot of women who are in that same area, they are high powered, they're executives, they're entrepreneurs, they're talking mostly about how difficult it is to get into a dating groove, to get into a relationship, that there are obstacles that I think women are faced with that men don't even have a clue about.
Absolutely.
Especially as it relates to the business and entrepreneurship. Right? And if I may, before we go any further, because this is really great, and I think we're going to really get into some stuff here. So want to put out as early as we can, as often we can. Please feel free to call in. The number is 888-565-1470, or you can go to Facebook and you can follow us there. And there's an easy way to submit questions that way too. So join the conversation.
And also, don't forget to share, because I have this thing. Sharing is caring. If you are listening to this message, understand that statistically shows that someone in your life probably needs this message. So don't hesitate. Hit that share button. Share it with your audience, because we have a lot of people that not only hear us on the radio, but they hear us via Periscope, YouTube, live streaming on Facebook. So don't be shy. Let that message shine, because listen, there are people that are really suffering.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I got a new Shiro too tonight. You're awesome. Thank you for that, for reminding us why we're here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that people listening, please feel free to join the conversation. So again, that overlap, one word that rose to the top when we were eagerly awaiting our time here this evening is the idea of empowerment. I think we're both in the same business, right? You empower women to be entrepreneurs and succeed in business. We empower women to embrace their sexuality and take their place at life's table, so to speak. We talked before, even in our in passing in the hallway, about how we share a passion for social justice. So we'd love to hear from you what your take on empowerment is and how it's different for women. We're baffled at the idea that people still talk about women like a special population, right? Like we're half or more than the population.
Absolutely. It's very interesting. I am the last of 6 children. So naturally, I'm kind of that go-getter, that entertainer, right? That last child syndrome. But the reality is women do have to walk a very sharp line. There is a line, because we are told that as a woman, you should be empowered. You should be aggressive and assertive. Right. You should be an alpha female. But guess what, guys? I don't know about you, but a lot of men don't like dating alpha females.
Yeah, they don't.
So we're constantly, if you're smart about it, you're constantly having to put on different hats. In the corporate world, you have to have that alpha female attitude. But then when it's time for drinks and you're networking and marketing, men are expecting you to soften up. In fact, in corporate America, even when I was a director, having 100 people report to me in 3 different countries, I remember sitting in my office and someone saying, "Ann, why don't you smile?" Now, I'm sure that you guys have never been asked by anyone to smile.
Actually, I have.
You have? Okay.
I have. But I kind of gave a Larry David type of response to that.
And it's just interesting. I'm here on my computer. Like, it's not that they were sitting in front of me talking to me, but you are expecting that I stand here on my computer smiling. And so I think women, we do have to juggle both hats. And what ends up happening, just like in most things in life, it is hard to balance that. And you end up doing more of one thing over the other. And so empowerment is a wonderful word. I agree with you. I think we both are on the same page with empowering people. But for the female sex, it's difficult because we want you to be empowered, but not too much.
Right. I think we saw a lot of that, just to pull a very recent context. Everything else aside, I think that was something that we saw very, very clearly that was put on Hillary Clinton during the past election.
Yes.
Whenever she got to a point where she had to either defend herself or whenever she even got to be assertive, she was knocked down. And we see that, I think, as a very, very common thing that women are constantly hit with. The rhetoric about being empowered, the rhetoric about being the alpha female, yet when you do, it's not accepted.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how, in a business context, because we can talk about that in a sexual context, but in a business context, how do women balance that, right? That idea of asserting themselves, but like you said, not too much. How do you constantly keep that line drawn?
You know, what I have decided personally and what worked for me, because I climbed up the corporate ladder very quickly. I had my first corporate director job at 20 years old.
Wow.
So what has worked for me is that, and I know some of you guys are going to throw a tomato at me, but I've embraced the reality of expectations. Yeah. That I have embraced the reality that because I am a woman, I can't change that. I am expected to put a smile on my face. I am expected to be able to be polite and not too abrasive. Now, what that means is that doesn't mean I have to lose my voice. I can say the same thing, but I would probably get better results and be more liked by my employees if I do it with a smile. Now, my male counterpart may not have to make that type of, what's the word I'm looking for? Make that type of accommodation.
Yeah.
But listen, I grew up, my parents told me you can't fight City Hall. And the reality is there's a lot of that. Now, once you get to a place of power, then you can fight City Hall, okay? But when you're
running City Hall.
When you're running City Hall, when you're the mayor, then you can do it. So I think that you need to balance it. But I want people to know that you can still be feminine and still be assertive and still be an amazing entrepreneur. Look at me. I have full makeup on, okay? And I can negotiate and close deals with the best of them. I don't have black on. I purposely, as a female businesswoman, don't wear black. I wear bright colors. I do things out of the box. So there is a balance. You can integrate personality and what your natural way of being is, but you do have to strike that balance.
Yeah. One of the questions we were going to throw your way was like the difference between economic empowerment and sexual empowerment. But I think you answered it last week when we were just sitting out in the lobby listening to your show. You were talking to Miss Lulu, and do you remember what you said?
No, I don't.
Oh, you said, this had to be chiseled in stone somewhere.
Okay.
You said, confidence is the new sexy.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh, yes. Confidence is the new sexy. Listen, I'm a big girl, but I never have a problem finding men. I really don't, okay? That notion, I've never had that problem. I've never really been single more than one day. So confidence, I think a lot of that has to do with my confidence and also enthusiasm. I think enthusiasm, especially in sex. Now, listen, I'm not going to skirt around the issue. If you are offended, turn off your phone, turn off your iPad. Sayonara, goodbye. We're going to get real because I'm about sex talk, real talk, okay?
It's
sex
about
talk,
time.
real talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sex. Great sex for me personally is about enthusiasm. It's about creativity. It's about being non-judgmental. What do you guys think?
About being present. It's about not being in your head, looking at yourself all self-conscious and thinking what's working, what's not working. It's about really being in a place, in a space, literal and figurative, with another person or people, if that's your thing.
And it's about owning not only your body, but what you're doing.
Own it! Own it! Ladies, own it!
Did I tell you how awesome is this lady?
Now, I want to ask you, since again, you were just saying some of the things that you were saying. We, again, in the spirit of not, sneaking around and cutting corners, we want to look at in what you're describing in terms of your own experiences. In sexology, there's a lot of, people like their little boxes. Right. And one of the little boxes, and I've always had a little issue with this as well, but people talking about black sexuality. As a woman, entrepreneur, and black woman, do you find there are any particular issues that you have dealt with because of those characteristics?
Especially in the context, I've noticed you've done your work all over the world, in
Yes.
Asia and South America. So I'm really curious to hear your answer
You know what?
to this.
That is such a great question. And listen,
That's why I keep
that's
them
a
around.
curveball I did not anticipate. But can I thank you for being brave and courageous and asking that question?
Sure.
Because I love sex talk. If we're going to do sex talk, let's be real about it. And you know, I do believe that in a lot of ways, and listen, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But for me, and for a lot of people that I read and talk to, black women are oftentimes sexualized in media, over-sexualized. I call it, because all women are sexualized, but I do believe there's an over-sexualization in a lot of media that pertains to black women. You know, for me, my experience, and I can only speak to my experience, I don't have that like typical black girl booty. And so I'm judged for it all the time. By family, by friends. Even if they're not thinking about me sexually, they're like a family member. They comment on the fact that I don't have the traditional black woman features with the larger, fuller lips and the big, round J-Lo booty and things of that nature. And so I do believe that is real. And it's interesting because when I am with my friends of Caucasian persuasion, they don't have those questions or concerns about my lips or my butt or things of that nature. So I do believe that there is a certain element of culture and what is perceived as beauty. And when we see it, I mean, my undergraduate degree was in sociology, and you know, culturally, beauty is different. There are cultures where men wear the makeup, men wear the lipstick, and adorn themselves. There are cultures where women wear plates in their mouth, and that's considered beautiful, right? And so I do believe that there is an element of that, and I thank you for that question.
In our field, and we've been very honored and proud to be able to bear witness, you know, the field of psychotherapy in general, and in particular sex therapy, is not a very old field, and it's traditionally a very white field. And you know, a couple of shout outs are due our dear old friend Judith Steinhardt, who started Go Ask Alice at Columbia University, one of the very first sex information resources, even before there was an internet. Stood up at a conference. We go to an annual conference of sex therapists from all over the world, different city every year. About 20 years ago, stood up during a big plenary presentation and just called everybody out. Said, just look around this room. What don't you see? Right? Look at this sea of white faces. And happily, fast forward 20 years later now, the ASECT is the organization I'm talking about, our professional home, the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, has addressed this in such a heartwarming way. I mean, we see diversity, we see women of color, we see every sexual minority represented, and people have a voice. And again, we're all stronger for it. Dear friends like Ruby Bowie, Natalie Elliott, Shamina Jean in Brooklyn is one of the most brilliant and up-and-coming superstar sex therapists. These women are entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
And one thing they never teach us in graduate school is how to be in the business of being a therapist.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's where folks like us really need people like you especially. But it's just an exciting time to see that the stigma's changing, that people can talk about sexuality. Also, one more, I have to give a shout out. Let me take a commercial break and just announce the number again. We're at 888-565-1470 if you want to call in. I'm going to give a shout out to our friend James Wadley, who is the head of the Association of Black Sexologists and Clinicians. They have a conference coming up in Chicago at the end of January, 31st, February 2nd. Really quick, I just want to read this paragraph and then ask you to comment on it, Ann.
Absolutely.
This is for the purpose of exploring the history, art, and aesthetics of black sexuality and relationships. Romantic and kinship relational challenges have emerged from enslavement, family separation, poverty, systemic and religious oppression, mass incarceration, heteronormativity, and white supremacy. The art and aesthetics of black relationships reveal itself in our resilience and adaptation to the complex challenges. Right? So let us know, if you could, in a kind of a tie it up with a bow. A socio-political, what's your message for young black women, young women of color, to demand their place at the table, to recognize these systemic obstacles and continue to rise above? I mean, look at the TV every day. We still got our work cut out for us, don't us?
Yes, we still do. You know, I come from a place that I am not anti a woman using her sexuality as power. And for some people, that might be anti-feminist. But I think that it is okay. If you are comfortable with your sexuality and you want to be a stripper or a dancer, if you even want to be in the porn business, if it is an active adult choice that you're making, there's nothing wrong with that. So my message is embrace your sexuality. If you want to be a virgin until you're married, I embrace and support you in that mission and that aim. I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, if you decide that you want a polyamorous relationship and all parties involved are adults and they're all consenting, then you know what? Let's have at it. Enjoy yourself. So, you know, we live in a very special time. We're very, you know, we have a long way to go. But because of the internet, a lot of groups are finding each other and we have a lot more of an open society. But, you know, I want to say that there is power in feminine sexuality. And, you know, it's very interesting. I'm a firm believer that one of the reasons why we are so anti, if you think about when you look at stories, whether it's TV, radio, magazines, women who are very comfortable with their sexuality are often demonized.
Yeah, threatening.
Yeah, and the pets burned as witches.
Exactly, burned as witches. And I think the reason is that there is true power there.
Yes,
you can bring down a
that
country.
Men have always been afraid of.
You can bring down. I remember I went to law school, and I remember taking a criminal law class where there was a mobster. I can't remember the mobster's name, but he was eluding the FBI. And they brought him down using a FBI agent woman who was a stunner. And they were able to get him. He was so distracted. He actually got into international waters and they were able to arrest him. So there is true power.
Sure.
Feminine wiles.
The feminine wiles. I think that's a real thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think on a non-conscious level, a majority of men have always been intimidated by that.
Absolutely.
Because there was always been, even not, again, non-consciously, this acknowledgement that you really do have the power. Nature knew what it was doing when it gave you the assignment of childbirth.
Absolutely.
There's a strength, there's a resilience that women have that really men do not, and men have always been intimidated by that. So try to use physical domination to try to compensate for that.
Absolutely.
And I think we have a long history of that. And I don't know that a lot of that, or I should say all of it at least, has really changed that much. Because you triggered something in me as well that, especially years ago, I'm going to date myself in terms of looking at music videos, mostly from the 90s and early 2000s, when you got groups like Salt and Pepper. Madonna's probably, I would say, the worst culprit of what I'm about to describe. That I think that for a lot of what women have been exposed to, and I think music videos in general just sort of horrible, and when it comes to, you know, the story about women.
Yeah, using women as props.
Right.
Yeah.
But with these particular women, that there was a lot of what I saw and what I would talk about as being presented as self-empowerment.
Right.
But I look at it and say, I don't see that as empowerment. I see it simply as self-exploitation. So how, especially in a business and entrepreneurial sense, where there is that glass ceiling, which is just as much a reality as all these other things. The system is stacked against women, and women may often have to find themselves in a position of using their sexuality, using that sort of erotic power to get what they want. Where would that line be between empowerment and self-exploitation?
Listen, they tell you this in the law. Follow the money. Now, if the profit of your self-exploitation is going to your personal bank account, then that's empowerment.
All good.
Wow.
Now, if the majority of that
I'm impressed.
is going to someone else's bank account, then
that's exploitation.
That's exploitation. So I say follow the money, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I do believe that we all operate from the point of self-exploitation. For us, us in the room, We are using our intellect. We are using our ability to speak and articulate ideas and messages. I'm exploiting myself right now. Okay? So, okay, maybe you guys don't want me to take off my top, and I won't. We have rules. We have rules, people. But listen, we're all exploiting ourselves. Some of us use our intellect. Some of us use our humor. Some of us use our sexual wiles. It's all, but I say follow the money.
I like that.
I love how comfortably controversial that is.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's that the concept will piss people off, and I don't care. I love it.
Well, but I mean, Shakespeare even said it, right? We're all prostitutes, and that we all have our price. Right? So I don't see that really as any.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, I believe that was Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, but I think that's true though.
Yeah, I think it's very much what you were just saying. Right?
See, I'm up there with William Shakespeare. Check
That's
that
right.
out.
That's right.
So one more powerhouse question before we run out of time. And I'm going to just read it word for word because I think it's such a great question. Does raising empowered women only involve talking to girls, like leaning in, or do we need to raise boys in a different way too?
You guys have great questions.
We need another half hour for that
Listen,
one, right?
but
We got 2
absolutely, I
minutes.
think it really does take two. It takes raising our women and raising our boys to understand sexuality, to understand that it's healthy.
To know female sexuality, right?
And male-female sexuality. I do think it takes both. It takes two to tango. I think that our schools are doing a lot better job doing that than years gone by. But I think men and women have to be part of this discussion. I think also other forms of sexual orientation have to be part of this discussion.
Intersectionality.
Right.
That's the word we could leave it off on.
Yeah.
Tell folks how to get a hold of you before I run out of time.
Sure, everyone. I am Shiro Rising on all social media. So you can follow me at Shiro Rising. And of course, you can text me. Text the word Shiro, that's S as in Sam, Hero, to the number 77948. That's 77948. And the word is Shiro.
And you can just stay tuned, and show will start right after hours.
Yes.
You can get me at ricky@modernsextherapy.com, and tune in next week. We'll see you. Thanks
Yes,
again,
indeed.
and
Thank you.
real
Thanks
pleasure.
so much.
And
Wonderful.
thanks
Thank
for
you for
watching
having
and
me.
listening.
Thank you for being had.
You've been listening to Sex Talk with Dr. Richard Siegel. Join us every Monday night at 9 on WNN, 1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Or watch live streaming video at AMP2 TV Productions on Facebook, or look for the shows on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again next week. The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of